Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of ARWP, the All Real Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Eric Novak, and today we have a special guest. If you haven't heard of him, you will today. He is the yoga monster, Mike Sydal.
Hello.
Mike, tell me how you and wrestling came to be. Tell me the first time you heard of wrestling and been in the ring.
Oh, when I was a kid, I watched it quite a bit when I could, and did backyard wrestling. So that was a big part of my life. And then eventually, I thought I should probably start training and be a pro wrestler. Long story short, and first match was in 2007.
All right, can you tell me, the feelings when you had your first match? Like, how did you feel before the match, after the match, and even during the match?
I mean, I was pretty relieved. I had been working towards that for a long time, and there were a lot of stumbling blocks, and I was just really happy to have finally got it done.
All right. Tell me, the biggest card you ever worked, and then the smallest card you ever worked.
Biggest, probably, Dragon Gate has their big show in Kobe, Japan every year. Which draws about 12,000. So that was a pretty big show for me to wrestle on. Monday Night Raw, I did a match recently, although I really doubt that I had 12,000. So it was probably the Dragon Gate Kobe World Card back in 2015 or 2016. Smallest, got a lot of those. I think I did back in... I want to say 2014 in Trenton, Missouri. There were 4 paid fans, but the promoter paid me, so nowhere. I was happy to work hard.
All right. Tell me your goal for 2020. We've seen you everywhere. We've seen you in Impact. We've seen you in Raw, 205, Dragon Gate. Tell me where you feel like you want your career to go next, your next journey.
Yeah, it's a funny question, man. Just because we're in such a bizarre time right now. 2020, I would hope nobody tries to run any wrestling events unless they're like an empty house event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be cool. Although it's got to be surreal to. When there at least there were 4 fans. I've never wrestled in front of 0, so that would be a new experience. I'd be open to it, but I'll tell you, man. I've been working a lot for this company called Lucha Libre Laughs in Denver, Colorado, and it's become really important to me. And so, if anything, I would like to just continue to be able to contribute to that as much as I can.
Tell us a little more about it.
Oh yeah, it's something really special and I think unique in the world of wrestling. So it's got so you notice it's got a interesting name to the company, Lucha Libre and Laughs. So it's actually a show that has both comedians and wrestlers. Mm-hmm. So the show will start out and it has a host, and then there'll be a comedian to warm up the crowd. And then there will be a wrestling match. Then another comedian, another wrestling match. They have 5 of each for each show. Mm-hmm. It's run at this really cool venue in downtown Denver called the Oriental Theater. Seats about 600. We sell out every time. It's a really cool experience. So one of the interesting things also is that just in addition to being different than all the other wrestling shows, is the type of crowd that it draws is just a little bit different. And I love all the crowds that I work in front of. It just happens to be a little bit different of a crowd because it's not just wrestling fans; it's people who just want to be entertained. So, and it's more of like a party atmosphere than a sports atmosphere.
All right. Tell me more about the Lucha Libre. Is it luchadors? Do you wear a mask? What's the Lucha Libre of it?
When the company started 7 years ago, they were trying to do like more luchador mask guys, but at this point, the Lucha Libre is more symbolic than literal. Mm-hmm. So we've got wrestlers of every type, including some masked wrestlers, but also I don't do a mask character there or anything. I just come in and do my yoga and wrestling.
All right, tell me more about the yoga. What idea did you have to put yoga and wrestling together? Because in my biggest experience interviewing wrestlers, I've heard a lot about stress. I've heard a lot about anxiety. Tell me how that affects you since you do yoga. Because I heard yoga clears a lot of that up mentally.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple questions there. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing yoga longer than I've been wrestling. And eventually it was just kind of I was already kind of incorporating it into my wrestling matches, but I wasn't turning that I wasn't dialing that volume up on my wrestling character. So eventually I was doing so much yoga, I figured I might as well just amplify that part and see how that connects with people. And it's really helped me make a better connection with the fans, I think. So that's been really helpful. And yeah, in addition to helping me connect with fans and advancing my career, the yoga separately from wrestling is also a really positive force in my life. So yoga literally translated means unity, the unity of the mind and body, the body and breath. So you can use your mind to control your breath. Mm-hmm. And in controlling your breath, you're able to go deeper into postures. So then using your breath, you're able to control your body. And then when your body feels better, your mind is more at ease. So it's this really cool circle that really does help eliminate stress physically and mentally and emotionally.
All right. How does it work with injuries? Like during the match, let's say you have a painful injury during the match. Because a lot of wrestlers have that experience. What would you do in that scenario? Do you, you know what I'm saying? How would you take that pain?
I mean, I've definitely been injured in matches before. A few years back, I hurt my MCL in a match, and I just went ahead and finished the match. I don't know how. I think there is something to be said for I hear people talk about the adrenaline is kicking in, and it really is when you're in the ring. Usually what happens when I get hurt, I'll feel something, but the adrenaline, and when I say the adrenaline, I don't mean like a mad rush, it's just like it's a natural chemical that occurs in your body, especially under more stressful situations or in situations of high importance. And of course, wrestling is always important to me. So usually what happens is on the occasions where I've been hurt and or injured in the ring, I'll feel something and I'll think, oh man, that's going to hurt later. But then I just keep wrestling. That one where I hurt my knee, man, I still did 5 more moonsaults in that match. I don't know how, because after I cooled down in the locker room, I could barely walk.
All right.
But I still finished the match.
As long as the match was over and no one really suspected any injury, I think you made it clear. Tell me.
Yeah, I got a job. Yeah, that was I was wrestling Orange Cassidy at Lucha Libre Labs there.
Oh wow! All right. You have to send me the information for Lucha Libre Labs. I have to put in the link, and I also want to look at it for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Tell me more about your Raw experience and your 205 Live experience. Because again, WWE is a different, I want to say, area than any other wrestling place. Because just the high crowd, people in the back, really suited. If you get what I'm saying. Well, how would you?
Sure, man. I mean, yeah, it's a different atmosphere for sure. It's just different. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better or worse. It's different, and I'm by no means under any kind of contract with WWE. But when they come through town, the last couple of years they've been calling me, mm-hmm. and on a few of those occasions, a spot has opened up in a match, and so they like me enough to put me in that match, put me on TV. So, I'm real grateful for that. The 205 Live stuff was really cool. That happens to be my favorite wrestling show. So I was really happy about that. And, of course, Monday Night Raw is a big deal. I mean, that's the show. That's the show to be on. So it's just kind of, I go and they usually call a handful of people from the area when they come through. They've been calling me pretty consistently. It's humbling and pretty cool for me. So I show up and just kind of hang around. I report in and just kind of hang around. And then on the occasions where something is opened up, then they said, go ahead and we're going to use Mike. So I've been very, very happy about that.
All right, no, that's great. That's great that WWE is reaching out to you, and it's great that you get to go there, whenever they're in town. Speaking of, contracts, no wrestler has to be in a contract. I prefer they don't. I love the independent scene, but have you, been interested in a specific contract that may or may not have come to you recently? Like, has there been anything that, maybe Ring of Honor, New Japan, Noah, anything, in the area that you can sign up and be an actual in the roster?
Yeah, so I did work for Ring of Honor for a few years, actually, and I loved it. I just never had a contract with them. Mm-hmm. And I was actually, my career was advancing. I was getting to the point where I was finally getting I got a couple of wins on TV for them, and that was really cool for me. So I trained at the Ring of Honor dojo for several years, and that was really helpful. So that's one of those things too. Like I was just kind of always around. So when something was open, sometimes they would throw me in a match, and I would like to think that I lived up to their expectations and that they continued to use me. And I was getting to the point where they were actually booking me in advance. That was really cool. And then I ended up getting a deal with Dragon Gate in Japan, so I went and started with Dragon Gate, and kind of I can't say I left a Ring of Honor on any negative terms. It just that's kind of I feel like when I started wrestling in Japan, my Ring of Honor chapter was closed, and I'm not saying it's closed forever, but that's just not that's not where I'm shooting for anymore.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And, just in terms of contracts, there have been, I've had a couple discussions. I did sign a deal with a company that came through Kansas City. It was a startup company. Man, Eric, I don't know if you saw, there was a recent, there's that Vice show, The Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
And there's a recent one on that. I forget the dude's name. He started UWF. And I just couldn't help but thinking about all these parallels. This dude came in with a ton of money and a lot of big ideas and wanted to start this company, and it fizzled out almost as soon as it began. And that's kind of what happened with this guy in Kansas City. So this dude has a ton of money, and he's in Kansas City, and he's got millions of dollars, and he says, I want to start a wrestling company. So we actually, you could get a full-time deal and wrestle for him full-time. It was very cool. You could also wrestle for him part-time and then have your freedom. So I was actually offered a full-time contract at first. It just didn't really seem like it didn't seem like it was in my best interest. So I ended up doing a part-time deal with him, which worked out great for both sides. And then, unfortunately, about 16 months after it started, it shut down. So it was, the guy's heart was in the right place. He was just a complete idiot about wrestling.
Yeah, not everyone can start a company and reach to high stardom. That goes back to the whole AEW thing. Tell me about AEW for a minute. Have you considered doing anything for that, since it is brand new, since it is coming together, looking for future stars? Have you considered anything for AEW?
Sure, and it kind of had a similar thing with AEW as I did with WWE, where they swung through town and they called me. Mm-hmm. And so I showed up, and there weren't any matches available, and that was cool. I did end up in the ring for a segment where Chris Jericho was doing a weigh-in with Jon Moxley, and they just wanted me to stand around. So I was just standing around, and then suddenly Chris Jericho booted me in the gut and tossed me out of the ring.
Let's talk about your brother for a minute. I had Matt Sydal a couple of weeks ago, and he said his best tag partner was you. You've done a lot of tag team action in, Raw, 205. Tell me what you want to go for the future. Is it tag action or is it singles action?
Well, yeah. I tell you, man, I kind of just ride the wave and see where it takes me, Mm-hmm. So if the wave ended up taking me to a tag team, and then I would ride that one and see where that path took me. And if it takes me on more of a singles path, then that's cool too. I tell you, this company that I was telling you about, Lucha Libre and Laughs. Actually, that's the poster you can see behind me. That's the poster for I wrestled on a team with Matt at one of those Lucha Libre and Laughs shows against these really talented, really smart guys. The 1%. It's Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs. They also happen to be hilarious dudes, and they are swole, man. So it was a really, really fun match.
All right. So
singles tag, it's all good, man.
Look, singles tag. In my opinion, I think tag team action is a lot more difficult, and it's a lot less, being shined upon more than singles. When everyone thinks of big wrestling events, think of singles action, and they really don't look at the tag team portion of it. That's why it's important to spread tag team action. But for your gimmick, for what you're doing, singles does look like the best part. But like you said, you ride the wave. Whatever happens, happens. That's a perfect mentality to walk life with. Tell me.
Thanks, I agree. And that is, in addition to wrestling, that's just kind of my attitude for life in general.
That's perfect. That's the same thing with me. I always believe everything happens for a reason. Tell me about AEW for. I feel like before I cut off, we talked about AEW. What were you saying about towards AEW?
Oh, so yeah, with AEW, I kind of had the same situation with WWE where they know me and they don't hate my work. So when they came through town, they gave me a call, and I showed up, and there weren't any spots open for matches that day, and that's totally cool with me. But they did need some people to hang around in the ring during a weigh-in between Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley. So I stood in the ring and tried to look official during the weigh-in. And then, to my surprise, Chris Jericho booted me in the gut, big boot, and then just tossed me out of the ring. So that's been my entire AEW career right there. Standing around in the ring and then getting thrown out by Chris Jericho.
Everyone gets an amazing debut start, your brother fought Shelton Benjamin and he got thrown at Kofi Kingston, I don't know which one.
It's funny that you remember that, man. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of your brother Evan Bourne. That was one of the biggest inspirations for me when it came to wrestling, because there's a lot of big guys. No one really looked at the cruiserweight level, and back then, no one really cared about the cruiserweights. He was one of the cruiserweights that really gave it something.
Yeah, and he was a real pioneer for a lot of the smaller guys, and I think a real inspiration for a lot of the new generation as well.
I agree. Tell me the strangest place you've ever worked in, because I've heard the craziest answers. What would you think was the strangest place they ever booked you to work in?
I mean, I've worked outside of a bar in the rain. That was a little bit messy. I did a standing moonsault and landed with my knee on the dude's face. Fortunately, he was a friend of mine and very forgiving. A guy named Mark Sterling actually played a big part in my career and helped train me. That might be the weirdest place I've wrestled. Just it's like, dude, it's raining. Can we just? You want to just call this show off? He didn't, so we wrestled.
That's real wrestling right there. I've heard a lot of things about basic bookings that they don't really think about. Yes, weather, you really can't control the weather, but it's I heard a lot of places that would book you for a boxing ring instead of a wrestling ring, and then you physically can't do anything in a boxing ring. You can't jump off the ropes, can't do anything like that. If you ever had a scenario where you were given an opportunity and it was the worst opportunity, you literally couldn't do anything?
I will say, one of my first singles matches, and this was probably in early 2008. That guy I just mentioned, Mark Sterling, we were wrestling in Memphis, and I had never been in the ring before, and I was brand new. I was real nervous. So Mark, I forget. It was anyway. I sometimes I do I'll hit the ropes in a handspring. So I'm upside down when I hit the ropes, and then I back handspring back, and I'll hit dude with a back elbow. Well, I tried. I went for the back handspring, but I got almost no spring from the ropes. So I was almost kind of stuck upside down for half a second. And then when I went back, I was just totally off balance. I stumbled back. I went completely backwards all the way across the ring and fell out backwards through the ropes onto the
Oh my
floor.
god. And did the crowd like notice it? Like, did the crowd like know that was like a botch, or were they were like, oh, it's part of the thing?
You know, he came out and he picked me up and he body slammed me. So it just seemed like part of the match.
All right, I mean that's good. That's good. All right, tell me, a match that meant a lot to you, sentimental or just you put a lot of blood, sweat, and energy in that match, and you think everyone should watch it. Because I've seen a lot of your
Yeah,
matches.
yeah, definitely. The few matches I've had with on the team with my brother have meant a lot. You know, it was hard. Matt. By the time I had my first match, Matt was already signed to WWE. So it just, he'd been wrestling for like 7 years at that point. And I had, just debuted. So it was like, I always kind of wondered whether our paths would ever cross. And it took quite a few years, but they finally did. I was able to team with him for the first time in 2015 in Japan. We were both doing a tour for Dragon Gate, and that was really special. We wrestled these two guys that are really, really talented, Yamato and Punch Tominaga. And if you are out there are not familiar with Dragon Gate, look it up. They have the wildest, most amazing, most athletic wrestling you've ever seen. And I was also it was very cool. The second time that I teamed with Matt was in Denver, Colorado. We wrestled for a company called Primos. They were doing a tribute show to a friend of ours who had passed away. So that was really special. And we wrestled another team of brothers, the King brothers. That was really cool.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, and then of course I wrestled with Matt for Lucha Libre and Last, like I mentioned before. Yeah, those all meant a lot to me.
So Lucha Libre and Labs, they have a lot of known talent. Orange Cassidy, you, Matt, they're picking up talent the same way,
Yeah, Colt Cabana works for them fairly regularly, and he there's a kind of a rotating roster of big names that he brings in for the shows, and it's cool that he can do it because the shows perform so like the shows always sell out, so it allows him to it gives him a little bit of capital to work with, and bring in guys that others may not be able to afford.
Are there like pay-per-views on like Fight or like streaming services? Like, is there any way you can watch it if you're not in the area?
Yeah, good question. So he's actually now that we're all stuck inside, he's trying to do something to keep people occupied. So the owner of this company, Nick Gossard, he's putting out new matches on his YouTube channel it's just Lucha Libre and Laughs. You look it up on YouTube. He's putting out new matches like every week. So like several matches a week, and they're hilarious, dude. So the cool thing is, one of the other great things, I mentioned it was alternating comedy and wrestling, right? But one of the cool things is they also have in-house. They have the comedians doing commentary on the matches while the matches are going on. So sometimes, especially, every now and then there's a little bit of a lull in the match. So the comedians feel it. They have experience. They're really good commentators. So they'll make a really good joke and keep the crowd into it. So in addition to watching really cool wrestling, you're also really entertained. It's just it's a hilarious time. I wish I could. So I wrestled Keith Lee and Anaya, two really talented guys. Yeah, Keith Lee, now he's an NXT champion or North American champion. So really, this other guy Anaya probably, a very near future will be an NXT, the WWE guy, I'm sure. So I was wrestling them, and I remember we were just kind of circling up before the match, right? So it's kind of like what's going to happen, but it's kind of a quiet time. So in this time, I can hear the commentators, and one of the commentators said, the comedians, one of them said, getting in the ring with Keith Lee and Anaya is the biggest mistake Mike Sydal has made since he got those stars tattooed on his back.
No, I'm pretty sure that's hilarious to sit there and have commentators, basically rip jokes on us. It's really cool.
Yeah, check them out on YouTube, Lucha Libre and Laughs.
I will. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
I'll also put in the link in the bio.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Of course. I'd love to support. This does remind me of something. Have you ever heard of Lucha Vavoom?
Yeah, I've heard of Lucha Vavoom.
It kind of reminds me of Lucha Vavoom. I think it's very, very similar in ways because it is based on luchadors. They put all wrestlers in masks and they also do the comedy thing stuff like that. It's really cool. I like that. I wish there was more of that. So it's really cool that Lucha Libre and Laughs is actually out there. I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Hey, somebody should steal this guy's idea because the show's really successful.
Everyone should. So tell me what you're doing right now at home, since there's no wrestling. How are you keeping yourself busy? How are you, taking care of yourself?
I'm working out a lot. That no change from the past, really. I'm doing a ton of yoga. Also, not a really big change from the past. I'm just doing it all inside of my house instead of out. And spending a lot of time with my dog, so I'm appreciative of that. And I'm just grateful for what I have, and I'm happy that I'm happy to be staying healthy and safe.
All right, all right. Tell me the first time you've ever held a title in the wrestling ring.
Uh, Man, there's this company that I wrestled for in Kansas, like when I first started, and I won the tag team championship. It's called Whiplash Wrestling. It was just awful. But it was a great place for me to get some practice and get my feet wet. And actually, interesting story. The guy that I won the tag team championships with is now a convicted sex offender. Tristan Smith is his real name, I think. He wrestled as Logan Ricks. I think he's like in prison right now.
All right. I hope you were safe during that match.
Hey, well, I wasn't a kid, so
Yeah.
I was all right.
Oof. All right. All right. Tell me. Your singles run as a champion. Have you?
Yeah, man. The first singles title was I think in 2009. I want to say actually it was probably 2010. Working for there's a really great guy out of St. Louis. His name was we would just call him TNT Kenny G, but his name is Kenny Garrett. A really great dude. Unfortunately, passed away a couple years ago, but he gave me a lot of opportunities, and I think he saw a lot of potential in me. And that was that was my. It was the God, what was that called? And it was the Live Wire Championship. That was the belt that I won.
How was the feeling of holding singles title?
I mean, it was cool. It was very cool. It was, wrestling is just so much fun. And when you have the belt, it means they have to book you at least one more time. So I was happy about that. Yeah. And then recently, I had a few singles and tag titles kind of here and there throughout my career. Most recently, I was the Lucha Libre and Laughs champion for like a year and a half or something. That was really, really cool. And, especially because I think so highly of the company, it was a big honor for me.
I recently watched a video of you winning a Dragon Gate award. You were like #1 wrestler of. I don't remember the exact thing. I watched it a while back, but I remember you got like a plaque. It was like a ceremony kind of thing. Can you tell us more about that?
That might have just been when they were introducing me. 'Cause I never got a title or an award in Dragon Gate.
They said Dragon Gate. I remember they were like Dragon Gate wrestler of the, or like superstar of the. I forgot. I don't know if it was year or like #1. It was like something. It was like you and some other guy. It was kind of like an interview, but he was awarding you. No.
You sure you're not thinking about Matt?
I promise you, I'm not, because Matt wasn't wearing green and purple, gear. It was and tattoos. But I do have a funny story about that later. But no, it was definitely you.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, they liked me in Dragon Gate, and I worked really hard. So my Dragon Gate story is that was probably the most challenging chapter in my career because my brother was at a kind of a higher level when he got hired by Dragon Gate, so he got a superstar deal where he goes over and he wrestles for them, and he wrestles in the main events, and that's where he was at.
Yeah.
When I got my Dragon Gate deal, it was, look, we like you, but you need to get on our level, kid. So the deal was, if I wanted to work for Dragon Gate, I had to train with their young boys every day, and God, that is brutal. I can't even, words can't begin to describe. I mean, and it's every day. Like my first tour there was 88 days. And of those 88 days, 82 of them we were training. So, and it's constant, man. It's constant. But they liked me. And because they liked me, they started putting me in more prominent roles.
Mm-hmm.
So, my first tour there, I lost every match. And then when I went back for my second tour, I won every match. So they really liked me, and it showed. So I can't recall specifically. It might be the Kobe World that you're thinking of. So Kobe World, like I mentioned, that's their biggest. That's kind of like the Dragon Gate WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. So and I was very grateful that they thought highly enough of me to feature me on Kobe World. That was very, very cool. So it may have been like a Kobe World thing.
All right. Tell me your greatest victory in your opinion, because a lot of wrestlers usually, bring up a title match, bring up a venue. What, in your opinion, was like this victory meant a lot to me, like at that moment?
Yeah, actually, it would definitely be the being featured in Kobe World for Dragon Gate. I mean, that's they have such a high standard of excellence. To be included in their top show is it was a huge compliment to me. Mm-hmm. Usually, man, in general, I'd say my biggest victory is that I haven't broke my neck in wrestling yet. Anytime I can walk out of the ring on my own 2 feet, it's a big victory for me.
Yeah, I agree. Tell me about your gear. I'm a big gear fan. I like the gear. Tell me about your gear. How was your gear created? The design, the color idea?
So when this dude came through and started this company, it was called NWL in Kansas City. This millionaire, and signed everybody the contracts and everything. He had a costume designer design gear for people. So the designer designed some gear for me. It was like it was like pink and orange. It was very cool. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt right now. Here we go, NWL. Fight Kansas City, we used to say. So I really liked the design, and when I stopped wrestling for NWL, I thought I should distinguish myself somehow and just make things a little bit different. So I just came up with a color scheme that was a little bit different. The neon green and the purple, which I think pops.
It does. Yeah.
So there's a gear maker up in Iowa. Her name's Corey McDowell. She's really, really talented, and she was able to make that gear for me. Man, I got some new stuff coming in too. I get all excited. I got some gold gear being made right now by a guy around here, Chris Dangerfield. He's also really talented, but it's like, when am I going to get to use that? I'm going to have this gear sitting around for 18 months or something before I can use it. And I've also worn this new gear that I really like. It's this black and red stuff with like the Dragon Gate logo on it. My brother actually made it for me. He makes gear now. He makes these awesome knee pads.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever look up Lion's Shield knee pads like on Instagram, he does awesome work.
Mm-hmm. All right, so tell me more about, because my next question was gonna be like, what's your upcoming designs, what's your upcoming ideas? Tell me more about your goals. What goals do you set yourself after the virus has came and gone and left? What goals do you set yourself concerning the next 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, so I definitely want to continue to contribute more to Lucha Libre and laughs. That's really important to me. I would also like, I would like a little more time to hopefully wrestle around with my brother. Last year, I trained with him for a couple of months. He runs a school. He was running the Evolve School in Florida. I still runs a school down there. Now it's called the Psy Dojo. And I'd like to get down there and train with him some more just because he's an absolute fountain of knowledge. And the more I can learn, the better. Really what I'm trying to do with wrestling, man, is just honor the business and honor the sport. So it's important for me to have diverse learning experiences, learn from different people, but also at the same time, the people that I want to learn from, I want them to be the best in the world. And that has been my pattern. So I've learned, I trained with Mark Sterling here in Kansas City. He was trained by Harley Race. And then after that, I actually went and trained with Harley Race at the Harley Race Dojo. Then I went to the Ring of Honor Dojo. I trained over many years with Delirious. Then I went to the Dragon Gate Dojo and trained with the best in the world over there. And then most recently, I went and trained with my brother, Matt. So I can't say, it's hard to say specifically where my career is going or what I want to do with it. But essentially, like in general, I just want to keep getting better, learning from the best, and when opportunities knock, I want to be there to answer the door. So I think that combination of things will bring good things to me.
All right, all right. Heading down to our final questions because we have a short time. Tell me about you and your brother. Have you ever had a singles one-on-one against each other?
Yeah, actually, the only time we've ever wrestled, except outside of the backyard, the only time that we've wrestled one-on-one was for Primo's wrestling in Denver. We wrestled on that tribute show for my buddy Jack Zaylor. We wrestled each other one-on-one, and then what happened was, I mentioned we tagged there as well, so what happened was this tag team came down, these two big dudes, the King brothers, and they beat us up before we could finish the match, so then it kind of became a tag team match from that.
All right, so there hasn't officially been a licensed one-on-one between you guys with the proper ending.
Yeah, we haven't had a winner. There hasn't been one fall to a finish yet. So
all right, well, that's
got a little bit of unfinished business there.
That's a goal. That's got to be something on your list now.
Absolutely.
All right, tell me more about Evolve. Like you said, your brothers, run the Evolve school at one point. Now it's a side dojo. Tell me about Evolve. Tell me about you and Evolve.
I did. Before it was Evolve, it was called Dragon Gate USA, and I went to a tryout there back in I went to several tryouts. One was in 2011, and the promoter liked me enough to put me on the show that night, and I was very happy and grateful for that opportunity, of course, and had a lot of fun, and I just maybe good things will come my way in terms of Evolve, and maybe they won't. I can't say for sure. It's an awesome company. What's really cool is that it's a great place for people to get exposure and get seen, especially for guys that are looking, and girls that are looking to get into, just to get more well known, get their name out there. It's a great stage for those individuals. And it's also a good place to learn because he has, not in addition to these really talented new people, he has some really talented veterans like AR Fox, and my brother wrestled for Evolve last year. It's a really good place to wrestle. So it's cool because now I'm seeing my brother on the same shows as some of the guys that I've helped train and bring into the business, like Brene and Sharkbait Anthony Gutierrez.
All right. I've seen you in the Impact ring. Impact is one of my favorite shows. I've been watching since 2015. Tell me about, Impact. Tell me about your situation with Impact. Tell me your first match, because I know you were in the Impact ring. I'm pretty sure I've seen you in Impact matches. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, that was really cool. So that was another one of those things where I went to a tryout, and they didn't hate me, so there happened a spot opened up, and I was hanging around, so they ended up putting me in that spot. I teamed with Chris Bay, who's really a talented up and comer. We wrestled the Rascals. I had a lot of fun with that. That was I believe that was a TV match for Impact. And the door certainly isn't closed for me there. I'm not saying they're begging me to come work for them. But it's I would say we have a positive relationship.
All right, hearing what you're saying, it's good that you're open to everywhere. That you're not signed yet to a specific company. You get to be everywhere you want to be. What out of all the experiences, and not counting Dragon Gate, because I know you and your brother had an actual bond with Dragon Gate. Tell me the experiences from just WWE, Impact, ROH. What was just the atmosphere that felt more pure, felt less restricted, felt more like if I mess up, I won't get my head chewed off, or.
I mean, I think the place where I had the most creativity is Lucha Libre and Laughs. In terms of the companies that I've talked about, I also work for a company in Kansas City called Journey Pro. They give us a lot of latitude and let us use our own creativity. So yeah, those places are both allow me to be really creative.
All right.
Did that answer your question?
It did, because my question was just which company did you feel good in, and I mean I didn't mention that because I didn't know about that company, and you answered that's the one that your current project you're working in, they're making you more yourself. You get to do what you want to do, not what writers are telling you to do. Because when you worked in Impact, when you worked in WWE and Ring of Honor, you got written work for yourself. You didn't want
Sure.
it. So it's different. It's different atmosphere for that point. Tell
Yeah,
me.
I mean, and that's the those larger companies are corporate, and
Mm-hmm.
the smaller companies are independent. So, and that's kind of the pattern that I have noticed is the larger companies, they kind of have a little bit more of a concrete idea of what they need from you, and they will tell you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. I can do that. I mean, I can do pretty much whatever they want from me, and the smaller companies, the more independent companies, tend to as a generalization, tend to give me a little bit more freedom.
All right. My next question is: if you got signed with either or company, any of the big, big brand companies, and they told you, "Hey, we don't like your gimmick," will you leave if they don't accept you for the person that you are, or will you go with the flow?
Well, listen, like I said, I mean, I can do anything. I just don't know why you would hire me and then not have me do yoga, since
Mm-hmm.
I am the most flexible wrestler currently working today, and I am awesome at yoga. It would be really weird for them to say, "Hey, don't do yoga." But look, if that's what they want, and it was the right time and the right place, I'm sure I'd be okay. I'll tell you that it's also kind of a funny story. So when I did that match on Raw, it was a tag team match. So we were in St. Louis, which is cool for me because that's my hometown
Mm-hmm.
originally. And we were wrestling. A partner of mine, Kyle Roberts, and I were on a tag team versus the Viking Raiders, large, scary individuals. And but we were in St. Louis, and if you're from St. Louis, you're a Cardinals fan. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
The St. Louis Cardinals. And then by virtue of being a Cardinals fan, you also hate the Chicago Cubs. So and this is another, it kind of goes back to what you talked about with
Mm-hmm.
kind of with writers and gimmicks and everything. So this writer had this idea to have us, myself, my tag partner, go out dressed as the Chicago Cubs.
Oh
So,
no.
which I mean, okay, look, it's not a yoga thing, but I got to admit it was a great idea, and it worked. Everybody, as soon as we stepped out, the moment we stepped out, they hated us. So it definitely got the reaction that they were looking for. And honestly, if I would have just walked out as myself, I don't think I would have got that immediate hate that I did. So there's certainly a reason that the writers come in and it worked out for me. And that was a time when I really did not need to do any yoga for the match tour.
All right. All right. Tell me, 5 guys that you haven't wrestled yet and that you would like to based on wrestling style, experience.
Man, there's so many guys. There's just so many talented wrestlers. Somebody that I haven't wrestled. Well, I tell you, there are anyone on the Lucha Libre and Laughs roster, like Hunter Gray, and and Bruce Rogers. I think they're both really, really talented. I mean, the Lucha Libre and Laughs roster is stacked. The Journey Pro roster is stacked. I would love to wrestle. Yeah, I'd love to wrestle those dudes. I tell you, I've wrestled the Regal Twins before, but I've never teamed with my brother to wrestle the Regal Twins, and I think that would be a wicked awesome match. So that's the match I'd most like to see.
All right.
What, that was like 4? Yeah, should I give you one more? I tell you, man, I would like to wrestle. There's a guy I tag with a lot here in Kansas City for that company, Journey Pro. His name is Luke Langley, and this is one of those guys. Especially, I feel bad for because it's like, dude's star was on the rise, and not that it's not now, but it's like had to hit the pause button on that because of this pandemic. So I would really love to be able to wrestle him one-on-one because we're so good as a team. I would love to be able to see some of that chemistry as opponents.
All right. All right. You talked about 205. You talked about, that was, your favorite show out of, everything that the Beatles had to offer. Tell me guys that you wanted to have a match with in the 205 live roster.
So it's kind of cool, man. A lot of the guys that have worked that work on 205 Live and Raw and SmackDown, I've wrestled before, kind of as we were all kind of on our way up.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to wrestle Brian Kendrick. I think he's, one of the best in the world for sure. If we're looking at 205, he'd be the top of my list.
All
But
right.
really, everybody on that show is so talented. I'd love to wrestle. It was, when I tagged on that show with with Niles Planquet, we wrestled Lucha House Party, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, the Samurai del Sol or Kalisto. He wrestled as Samurai del Sol before he got to WWE. Now he's Kalisto.
Yeah.
And man, when we were both coming up, we would kind of cross paths every now and then, especially like when I went through Chicago with Ring of Honor, and we would talk about how cool it would be to wrestle, and it just never materialized, you know. And then what do you know? You're 10 years down the road or whatever. I ended up wrestling him on 205 Live. That was very cool.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about wrestling now. I can't say wrestling then, but wrestling now, you're not just sent to the WWE or AW or anything like that. You have to start from a school, and then you have to start from an independent league, and then get to the main company. You can't be like a Rock or like Family known. You can't just jump into the big companies. You have to get yourself there, which is the coolest thing because every wrestler knows each other when they first come into any roster.
Yeah, I tell you, it is. It's a wild ride, man. It's a journey. And I can't say I've ever really focused on the destination of where I want to end up.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of enjoy the journey. And the cool thing is, like, the wrestlers all have our own individual journeys, but they kind of they interweave from time to time, and it's very cool. Like, there's some very good people in wrestling, which of course Kalisto being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But just that's one example of many who maybe I haven't seen in years, and then we cross paths down the road, and it's almost like running into an old friend. It's very cool. And I'll tell you, man, it's all about the journey.
All right, we are coming to an end. Can you tell me or give the fans who are listening some spiritual words of advice, something to really think about?
Yeah, sure. So, we are all suffering to some degree right now. It's a difficult time, and depending on who you are, your situation may be more or less difficult than others. All I can tell you is hang in there. Take each day by day. Take each moment by moment. Appreciate the loved ones that you have, and make the most of your ties with family and friends, because in my experience, family and friends are what matter the most.
All right. Tell us where everyone can find you on social media. Tell us where we could buy your merch.
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Yoga Salt. That's YOGASAULT. Which, by the way, is the name of my finishing move. I take a yoga mat up to the top rope. It's all rolled up. I do a backflip moonsault with it. The yoga mat opens up, and I land on top of the guy. I call it a yoga salt. So that's my name.
I've seen that, too. It's remarkable.
Thanks, man. And that's my handle on Twitter and Instagram is Yoga Salt. And then also look me up on YouTube. Look up Yoga Salt on YouTube. I uploaded a bunch of my matches from the U.S. and from Japan. And I've also got some instructional yoga videos on there. So there's stuff for yoga videos for people of all levels, whether you're a beginner or very advanced. There's definitely something for you on there. And I hope that's a benefit to people.
Mm-hmm. Is there any way we could buy merch? Do you have any merch coming up?
No, man, I don't have any merch for you. I tell you.
We should get yoga mats. Come on. You need
save
to
your
start...
money. Well, the thing with it, and I understand a lot of people making a living off yoga, but at this point in my life, I'm fortunate enough to have to be in a position where I can give my yoga away for free. Mm-hmm. So I just want people to enjoy that at no cost. And hey, if you like it, then I'm very happy, and I hope you continue to enjoy it. And you save a few bucks, and then I'm sure there's somebody that needs it more than I do. Maybe you can give it to them.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the ARWP podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I loved it. I think Mike Sydal was amazing. I'm going to go watch more of his matches right now. If you haven't done it yet, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with everyone you know. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. And we got big guests coming up. The road is so bright. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.